Yeah. Well, good evening and welcome everyone to the Woodlands Water Agency Board of Trustees regular meeting. We will begin with our call to order of our seated trustees. Trustee Ron Wilson.
Present.
Trustee Hartley McIntosh.
Present.
Trustee Neil Gaynor.
Present.
Trustee Kyle Mays.
Here.
Trustee Jan Price.
Here.
Trustee Ted Stanley.
Present.
Trustee David Smith.
Here.
Trustee Hugh Conant.
Here.
Trustee Bob Lux here. Very good. We got everybody. I think. Oh, Paul Martin. Paul. I'm a victim here, Paul. I'm poor internet capabilities. I called up my Excel spreadsheet. Okay. We have a quorum. We have an agenda. We'll open the meeting with an invocation, pledges of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those who we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance and engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with understanding, wisdom, and humility. Amen. If you wish, prior to reciting the pledges, please take an additional moment of silent prayer and reflection in the manner of your preference. Thank you. Pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Receive comments from the public. I believe that we have one, a Mr. John Yours, one of our directors.
Just want to stop by this evening and thank you all for your help to get me elected to the Lone Star Board.
Good job.
Appreciate that. Hope to serve in Woodlands. Capacity. Hope to be a regular visitor to your meeting so I can keep up with what you all are doing and how well you're managing. Appreciate your help. Thank you very much. I'll be seated. I think they're still in shock, but.
Good for them.
I'll let you know. Thank you.
They ain't seen nothing yet, right? Okay, agenda item 4, receive information from Arthur Bredehoff, WWA representative on the Region H Water Planning Group. Arthur, good evening.
Thanks, trustees, for the opportunity to be here. As we talked about back in August, it was requested to keep the board updated, so it's an honor to be here to do that. We had our November 2nd meeting, so we're here at the November trustee meeting to provide an update. I thought I'd start with maybe a little basics. How did all of this take place in all of these regions? Well, back in '97, the Texas legislature established that the state water plan for 2000 to 2050 would be developed through regional planning. The legislatures had some real forward wisdom, and then the Texas Water Development Board stepped in and said, let me take that map of Texas and I'm going to create an alphabet from A to P. And it created 16 regions that have the responsibility to do regional water planning that will get uploaded into the state plan. So currently we have a regional plan for Region H, and the rest of the 15 regions that you'll find in the state water plan that Texas Water Development Board that is for 2022. Back when the legislature started, we were looking out to 2050. Today, we're going to be looking out to 2080. Think about that. That's really forward-looking on planning, but it's essential because there's a lot of things taking place in this state, in particular in Region H. There's 15 counties in Region H. It's an economic engine for the state of Texas when you think about what's in our region. We got the Port of Houston. We cover 3 river basins, San Jacinto, Trinity, and Brazos. We cover coastal water basins. We got a tremendous infrastructure, and we think we have a lot of water. Well, the demands in this county, just one county alone, Harris-Montgomery Metroplex, is really driving population growth within this region, and there's other counties following. So we have to take that into account. So what we're doing now, we have to do the plan for 2026, which will cover 26 all the way out to 31. So this process started not only in Region H, but the other 15 regions started back in February of 21. So on a timeline, we're here November of 22. So we do have a consultant, that's Breeze and Nichols, and they gave us a briefing on the 2nd, which talked about 2 dates that we have to meet in 23. In July, we have to validate and present our data on water demand for what I call is non-municipal, non-population. That's everything from cattle, steam, electric generation, mining, agriculture. So we're working on those now, and our consultants working with the Texas Water Development Board to gather that. Then in August, we have to present the population water demands to the Texas Water Development Board. So all the data has to be reviewed in our 21 plan, which covers years 21 to 25. Validate that. We're seeing right now the irrigation projections that's in the current plan are going to change in the next plan. So you say, why? Don't you need irrigation? Isn't the demand going to be strong there? There's going to be less demand in some of the counties because the counties are changing from agriculture and farming and ranching into urbanization. So you'll see the demand in a different way, and the demand can be a lot higher because we're dealing with people. We all know, you guys know better than most what that's like. We do look at things as groundwater. We look at reuse. There's a group of strategies that'll be in the plan. It'll cover everything from conservation, subsidence, reuse, groundwater, surface water. So all of these strategies that are in the current plan have to be revalidated, either updated, right? Taken out if the projects that were put in the plan will no longer take place, or they were just kind of placeholders. So all of that's going on right now in the planning process. Normally, we meet 4 times a year. It's projected that in 23, we'll probably meet more because we have timelines that we have to meet. We have to make decisions, and we have to vote on this. The other thing that regional water planning does, it has to take input from local water districts like yourself. So what you guys are doing here in infrastructure planning is very key, not only for the Woodlands, but it's key just for planning in general. The other major timelines, and these are deliverables that we're looking at, is that we have to have a first draft in year 24. We'll get our first draft, and by October of 25, we'll have the final plan. In between the draft and the final plan, there may be a number of public hearings, maybe a couple, there may be one, but I think the public hearings, according to the timeline, will be closer in year 25 before we get the final draft done, so we can get some input from the public. So you can see, and I'm learning that planning is detailed, it's tedious, and you just got to be patient in planning. And we're working with Shelley. It's either there today or will be there. We're going to have a Region H folder on Woodlands Water website. We're going to put some of the planning documents. We'll put some links to the Texas Water Development Board. for the current state plan, which is 2022. We'll put links to Region H. We'll put some maps, just in case you want to look at it, it's there. We try to make it convenient. And my plan is to come back every time we have a meeting at Region H, minimum once a quarter. If we have more than a meeting once a quarter, we'll be here, if it's okay with you guys, to present. And then next meeting is scheduled for February 1st, 2023. Any questions? And Jim and I talked about, he suggested to be on the agenda in case we had questions. If I did it in public comments, we really couldn't entertain any questions. But we appreciate the time. We know you have a long agenda tonight, but we wanted to take this opportunity to just share an update. Ted?
Just one quick question, Arthur. You might have sent this and I missed it, but how many counties are included in Region 8?
There's 15 counties included in Region H, like Galveston, Harris, Montgomery, Liberty, San Jacinto. I haven't memorized them all, but I'll get there.
That's good.
But there's probably about 5 counties, maybe 8 counties out of the 15 that are really driving on the population demand for water and are changing from an agricultural focused county into a more urbanized county. We can see it here, right? Look at the concrete up, just up 45 from the Woodlands and all the way to Galveston. You can find urbanization. So the demands will not get less, but there's strategies to talk about how do we reuse water? How do we shift more from groundwater to surface water? Where will the water deposits be in the future? You guys signed an agreement with the San Jacinto River Authority to maybe take on Trinity River water in the future. So water is going to probably come from further away. It's going to become more costly. And we're going to have to try to share that message with our constituents and our customers to let them know that the days of cheap water are no longer here. But we have to guarantee that there's going to be water supply for everybody, because without water, we don't know what the outcome is. So again, thanks much. And,
Thank you,
had a
Arthur.
great success.
We appreciate you serving, number one, and we appreciate the offer for regular updates. Terrific, terrific. Thank you very much. Okay. Consent agenda, items number 5 and 6. There any, that goes from pages 1 through 13 in our packets? Yes, sir.
On the bottom of page 6, you have a consumables, 9,000. You have depreciation.
For anything over 5,000 depreciable vehicles, large equipment over $5,000.
So vehicles mainly. Copier, copier.
Yeah, but those are leased, so no, not copiers particularly, but larger equipment items.
Anything else, David? That's it? Take your time.
But one more page. Oh, yeah.
No worries.
12, page 12, Texas Water Foundation.
Go to check to.
Yeah, we're going to check too.
Membership, possibly a membership.
Membership.
I didn't personally see that invoice.
I've been to those meetings. Usually they have a meeting in Austin, at least an annual meeting, and it's very well represented. And I can't remember the name of the lady, Jim, maybe you remember who yeah, me too. But anyways, they usually honor a particular legislator who is very active in assisting in the development of water within the state. It's at that museum that's down there on 5th, kind of behind the Capitol, is where they usually have this. It's quite a nice event, and it's very well attended by all of the legislators. Carol.
Yeah, the first name,
Yeah.
sure.
Good old Carol. Okay. we have, yes,
Move to approve the consent agenda.
very good. Second. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda, and we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
My abstention.
Well, I abstained from the, yes, because I wasn't here. 2 abstentions. Thank you. Good call, Ted. Okay. Agenda item number 7. Receive the regular SJRA Woodlands Division report, including update on wastewater strategic plan and update on infrastructure funding. Oh, Jason, good evening. I thought Mr. Hildebrand would be doing that, but Jason, welcome.
We'll be giving you a full update.
Welcome. Nice to see you.
So I don't have anything to add operationally to the packet, unless you have any questions for me. But I can give you the update on the strategic plan.
I know you have this all the time, but it's a total loss of water, 9.4%.
Is 9%, that's your water loss. That's everything from what we pump versus what's billed. So it could be, yes, sir, it could be flushing off the tanks, meter leaks not accounted for, and those type.
It's pretty typical.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Another question on page 23.
Yes, sir.
So I'll just kind of do some doodling here. And I see here that City of Conroe, 420 million gallon water.
Yes, sir.
In September, and they bought surface water, 81 million gallons. That's about a 16%
It's
ratio.
around 18% ratio
Why
right
is that?
now.
I thought we were all at 35.
Well, Conroe, we can maximize at 35%, or they can request variances. So they've requested less than the 35% right now, especially now being, we're kind of in the less use months, maybe a little less, and then summertime it'll ramp up, I'm sure.
You know what I find more helpful in this structure here is that, when I started looking at this, I went back to the previous minutes. And sometimes you put groundwater usage in minutes, sometimes you don't. So I would like to see it's consistent. So if we want to go back and,
You saying in the minutes or this page?
well, I wouldn't mind seeing this table, just one table with, with the months in the columns that you can graze over the table. See
Okay.
when that changes.
You want to run in monthly?
Right, a kind of a running table. I mean, I like that. I like to shake that up. And when I began to do that, the first thing I realized is I didn't have any data for the 5 top groundwater users, which I assume they don't change that much. They'll only just give us the total, but not the users.
Okay.
I'll have to see that as we go forward.
We can work on that.
So, just make a comment here for transparency or a request of Chris to Peaks that is provide greater granularity in the groundwater users in Montgomery County, the GRP participants. And it turns out, of course, that 5 cases use half what is pumped here. And we haven't previously, we've only seen a single number.
We don't see a signal up.
Right. And as we build, as we sort of flesh out where water is going, we're going to see patterns, as you might guess, such as you described, the ratio, surface factor, groundwater, why that should be, and start exploring how our water is being used and what potential impacts could be. But we need to get that information out there and share. Hope this is helpful to you, but we'll progress. And I'm sure there are 5 numbers that are back there.
Yes, sir, we can look back and get variance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I get the numbers, just the ease of getting them.
Yeah, sure.
And,
I'm sure.
me going through my notebook, looking for the numbers.
Yeah.
It's time consuming. So in the future, if we could have, a table reflects all the data, so we just have to shoot what we can.
Yeah, I definitely talk to Summer on how to gather that data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Quick update, wastewater strategic plan in your packet on page 29. I did want to highlight a proposed schedule. So we've been working on this for numerous months now, and we're starting to work towards some conclusions and path forward, and wanted to, brief this group on what direction we're going, what are the key milestones coming up. So we've laid out a schedule here from now through February. We've had our most recent stakeholder meeting on November 2nd. We've had some general discussion, debriefing with our consultant based on that meeting. We have the November MUD meetings coming up next week. That is just, an opportunity for general discussion, questions. The individual MUD's stakeholder representative, I anticipate being there, and just an opportunity for general discussion on the overall project. One bigger event that's coming up is November 29th. And I believe that date is confirmed now. There has not been an invite sent out, so I don't know if that's something Shelley's working on.
Yeah, someone's gonna include it in the packets next week,
Okay.
but I talked to her today about it.
So it says tentative on here, but November 29th, I believe, 5:30 to 7:30 at Esteray's Woodlands office. We are having, calling a strategic plan seminar. What that is open to all MUD directors to come, and we will give an overview of from the beginning of the study, the strategic planning to where we are today. And just an opportunity for just MUD directors to come hear where we're at and ask questions. So that is a bigger event coming up. We're going to have a draft technical report that's made available sometime early December. We are adding an additional stakeholder meeting. So that is tentatively right now, December 13th. We'll have the December MUD meetings as another opportunity for just general discussion. And we will have what we anticipate being the final stakeholder meeting in early January, January 10th, is what is currently scheduled as. And from that final stakeholder meeting, we're going to be asking the stakeholders to make a final recommendation on the alternative or alternatives to move forward in further phases for the strategic planning. January, we anticipate coming to the individual MUDs for voting on that path forward. Then in February, because it all started back with the trustees approving the work order for our consultant to do this, we plan to bring it to the February trustees meeting for final approval on path forward for any future phases. So that's what we currently have laid out to really kind of wrap this up and get to some decision points. I'll pause there if there's any questions on that current schedule.
December 13th, we have stakeholder meeting.
The December 13th is the stakeholders only.
Dan, I have a question. Maybe it's to part of the other group. So the MUDs will eventually go to the MUDs and look for approval. That's what you said, or voting. What's the mechanism for the MUDs? I think I've asked this question before, but I don't know if I recall the answer now, so I'm trying to think about it. Each of the MUDs are going to vote. The outcome of that vote, let's say it's not a majority. Does it still go to the trustee? I mean, what's driving the overall decision-making governance model? Is it the individual MUD votes or the trustee vote or a combination? Does that make sense, the question?
Yeah, and I guess, Jim helped me out with this one, but I would see the January individual MUDs would be just a recommendation or voting on how their trustee would vote in
Correct.
February.
Yeah.
And then it would be based on that trustee vote on how we move forward.
Yeah, and I think
Gotcha.
it's a little more complicated over time. So to start with so this is all the money. So for basic expenses with the strategic plan that are paid for out of the River Authority's general operating budget that's funded through wholesale water rates. That's ultimately voted on by the trustee. Now, we go through the process of getting direction for each of the trustees through informal votes by each of the mud board that are non-binding on trustees, but help give direction to each of the trustees to vote. Now, fast forward a few years, if what's ultimately selected is a significant capital outlay item that results in additional debt financing by the River Authority that would not necessarily be funded just through the wholesale rates, then that would potentially require supplemental agreement between the River Authority and each of the MUDs. And in that case, those agreements would be formally approved by each MUD.
At the mud level, okay,
Good question.
good,
long answer.
but that helps, no, that helps a lot, that helps a lot, thank you for pushing forward a little bit.
Please understand that historically, the majority of the MUDs defer their December meeting in case there's some required action. And I can't speak for MUD meetings because we haven't had them yet, but this month, the majority of the MUDs probably will defer to December meeting.
Defer means cancel.
Well, defer pending a necessary, if there's something necessary, we'll have it.
We don't plan on anticipate any action item from the MUDs in December. That's why.
Well, I just
taking that
wanted to
into
know.
consideration, yeah, that's why we pushed that
Yeah,
to
good.
January. We have experienced that.
And the 29th meeting, remember, is that the dam or the sewer plant?
That is, as far as I'm aware, it's gonna be at our wastewater treatment facility number 1.
Okay, sewer plant.
Yes.
Training room at the sewer plant.
That's correct. But anything,
I did want to highlight one kind of big picture piece that was an outcome of the November 2nd stakeholder meeting. We presented a lot of graphs and tables and charts, but getting to the more financial cost aspect, whether it's total cost of ownership, impacts the rates of the remaining, at that point in time, 9 alternatives that we brought into that stakeholder meeting. We had great discussion with the stakeholders. We received a lot of good feedback. And we have, between now and the December stakeholder meeting, there's some revisions we need to make to those tables and those charts and those numbers. And represent them to the stakeholders. That's one reason why we added that December stakeholder meeting, which was originally not on the schedule. So there was good feedback. And one of the outcomes is we have narrowed down the alternative. So going into the stakeholder meeting, November 2nd, there was 9. Coming out, we currently have 4. They're still on. One of the big pieces is we've talked about the conventional treatment methods that we're currently utilizing at our 3 wastewater plants versus more of an advanced treatment technology, the membrane bioreactors, or NBR is what we've been calling it. So the 4 remaining alternatives that are on the table for further analysis and evaluation are all 4 of those are going to NBR treatment. So 4 remaining is at a baseline renewal and replacement at plants 1 and 2, but renewing and replacing based on remaining useful life, but transferring those conventional plants to NBR treatment. The second option is consolidating the treatment plants, which consolidation would not take place until more of the 2047 timeframe. So, but over the 50-year planning horizon, that's currently said we would consolidate and consolidated treatment plant 1 with NBR treatment technology. And there's a certain conveyance route associated with that. The third option is the same on the treatment side, consolidating at plant 1, but it is a separate conveyance route. One goes east of Lake Woodlands, one goes west. And then the final, what we've called alternative 9, is to, in the near term, we have a need to replace a significant amount of wastewater treatment facility number 1. So what alternative 9 looks like is building a brand new near-term 2027 MBR treatment plant next to existing treatment plant 1. So that would be acquiring additional land toward Littleton Road, east of the facility, building a new plant while continue operating the existing one. And then further down the road, we would still just be doing renewal and replacement of plant 2. So what that does, it allows us to address the immediate needs at plant 1 and still 20 years down the road, future mud directors and staff can make a decision on if we consolidate or not. So even the new plant, building it up now, we would have built it in a way to expand it for potential future consolidation. But it would be more addressing immediate needs. So those, and we can talk about it more next week too and lay it out, and there'll be meeting minutes from the stakeholder meeting and additional slides to help present that clearer than probably I have explained it. But we are down to 4, big picture, down to 4 alternatives. All 4 of them include MBR treatment technology. What question, Paul, do you want to?
So, Dan, for those that are not on the strategic planning committee, talk a little bit about the changes that we've seen in terms of cost on the MBR.
Sure.
As compared to different technologies currently called conventional.
Correct. So we've worked closely with our consultant, and there was some original thoughts that MBR treatment technology would cost more than our current conventional treatment methods. That
MBR meaning,
membrane bioreactor.
yeah, just make sure that like a filter process.
Correct. So originally we thought, or it was kind of presented to the group, I would say, is MBR, well, it's going to cost more, but there still might be other non-cost factors that are better value. But since then, and further evaluation, the cost of our current conventional treatment methods versus the proposed MBR, it is appearing in all the MBR alternatives to be actually, total cost of ownership less than our current conventional treatments. And what the consultant was going off of some previous studies with other cities within the region, and their conventional treatment technologies were different than ours. They were actually using what's called sequencing batch reactors, which is still another conventional treatment technology, but a different process than we're currently using. So in that case, it was going to cost more on that other city, but in our case at SGRA, MBR treatment compared to what we're doing now appears to be cost less overall. Is that fair?
We don't have any relation to odor release. Change that.
It would, in a lot of cases, provide a higher level of service on the odor non-cost factor too.
Would that be more of an indoor facility too, where it's contained and wouldn't be open air like some of
The
the?
membranes would be inside the building. Correct.
That would be a plus.
You would probably still have some open aeration basins. But a lot of that treatment portion of the membranes would be inside a building.
Yeah. So, do you think the decision criteria for deciding which alternative are clear? And will we get into that maybe? I'm not going to get into it now because we could probably drain the whole night doing that, but in the 11/29 meeting. So I would expect us to have, is it cost, is it technology fit, strategic fit, cost of ownership, all these different things. You would generally have some kind of map out of what you think is the top priority, what maybe is allowed.
Right.
Do you feel like the stakeholders, and maybe those who are stakeholders can weigh in, do you feel like that's clear for the stakeholders, and then therefore the MUD directors who will be, in their meetings later on in the year, making recommendations to a trustee to say, this is where we need to go? Or is that work yet to be done? Just a perspective of.
No, absolutely. And we have taken steps through the various previous stakeholder meetings to define level of service, define evaluation criteria, assign different weights to which criteria, whether they're cost or non-cost factors. I would say we have touched on that even the previous stakeholder meeting here on November 2nd. But after we revise some of these charts and graphs, we will revisit that final process for evaluation and say assigning scores to the alternatives in the December meeting also.
Okay.
So it's not 100% wrapped up and
Right,
may be
right.
subject to change,
Okay.
but we'll present at the November 29th meeting, the process we've gone through. Here's
Excellent.
where we are today.
Perfect. Thanks.
Dan, refresh my memory. Treatment plant 3 is not in this study.
No, it is not.
What's going to happen with 3? I mean, it's got to have a useful life. I doubt it can be converted to MBR. That's package plant type stuff. Or at least, correct me if I'm wrong with that assumption. It doesn't appear to be,
Yeah, at this point in time, it is not part of the study. That is, I guess, the newest facility we have, treatment facilities. And so it has a significant remaining useful life left in it. So I think that is something that eventually will be approached on what we do with that. But at this point in time, within the reasonable planning horizon, we're not really at
Okay.
that point.
oh,
And
it's
it's only-
significantly smaller, but
Yeah.
all
0.9.
critical, you gotta have
Still
it.
there.
Gotta have it. Have it. Thank you. Anything more?
Anything else?
Questions?
And we hopefully look forward to seeing on 29th.
Thanks.
I think you're still on deck here, Mr. Hildebrand. I believe that you'll do the Spring Creek detention study update.
I was gonna say, I don't have any.
We're not gonna let you forget that then.
I was gonna say, nothing on the infrastructure funding. I know that was another bullet
Oh.
point. Yeah, Spring Creek, feasibility study. So what we have done, SRA and SRA's consultant has provided a flow chart of options to the funding partners. And the flow chart lines out the different paths we could take to further the study. And associated costs with those and associated deliverables, milestones, et cetera. So that has been provided to the funding partners. We have a meeting Monday, November 14th, with the funding partners only to get their input and recommendation on path forward. And then we have a progress meeting, stakeholder meeting the next day on November 15th, which is open to all the other stakeholders beyond the funding partners to hopefully present
What was that date, please?
November 15th. So they're back to back. And then on the November 15th, it's really present what comes out of that meeting on the 14th from the funding partners. And if we get specific direction on what way to go, that's what we'll be reporting in the first meeting.
And there were stakeholders that was bought to review them.
So that is not really an official stakeholder group like the wastewater strategic planning. That is just other members around the community that have come in that have interest in that project. So we just call them kind of out. We've defined the funding partners as, who has actually provided funding for that grant project and local matching funds. And then the stakeholders is kind of everybody else.
And for that, the MUDs that provided funding.
There have been 5 months, I believe, they
Yeah.
provided funding.
60, I know is 1, and
Yeah.
47, 46.
160, 47, 46. And 7.
Yeah, and then 386. And Humble?
Oh, yeah.
386.
Yeah.
The number.
Humble is and Harrison.
I might have missed something. I don't recall receiving an invitation to that meeting.
don't either.
What time of day is that?
So Jim, you should have that invite. You can have that funding. Not the funding, but the
I do.
spreadsheet. So
I'll get it sent out.
So we found so if we could go to this meeting on the 14th or 15th, it's just open to select stakeholders.
Is it gonna be Zoom? We've had them for in person.
I think we're encouraging the funding partners to be in person, but I believe there is a Teams option open. So if there's individual MUD directors that are, of funding, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And that's,
We'll get.
get
the
with,
information.
I would say get with Jim and the meeting. Request.
Is it time set and location?
So the time, let me check the time. It's gonna be, at our Woodlands office, I believe. Yeah, it will be at our Woodlands office, wastewater treatment facility one, and it is from 3 PM to 5 PM.
Both days.
No, that is Monday, November 14th, funding partners meeting.
And let me, the funding partners are 46, 67, and 1.
46, 67.
60, 67, and but 1.
And what's
Along the ones that are along Spring Creek.
Then to answer your second question, on November 15th, which would be open for anybody, that is from 2 PM to 3 PM. And that is up at our SRA and GNA boardroom, Lake Town Room.
Okay, the jam.
And there's also teams call in for that too.
You send out
Absolutely. Yeah.
I appreciate
Doesn't that conflict with some MUD meetings? If you said that was open to all MUD directors, right? I believe it
It's a
does.
challenging one, but I don't think it does.
It's a small window.
Yeah, I usually run back and forth. Yeah, because MUD 60 is at noon and then there's a break until 4:30.
Okay.
So it's kind of in that middle timeframe. That could work.
Is it, for logistical purposes, is it essential that it be up at, SJRA, on Lake Conroe? Could it be here?
I think at this point, we're probably gonna leave that meeting where we got some other staff and funding partners that have been instructed to go up there, so. Any other questions?
Further questions?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hildebrand. Receive the attorney's report. Brian Yates. Good evening.
Number 9, I will note, I know we're talking about several kind of loose informational meetings. One is this one at the end of November. The other is this planning meeting for intention study. And to the extent that we have, I know you are very well aware, but I feel like, need to make sure to always reiterate if we have more than 2 directors from any one MUD, very, very careful to make sure that more than the 2 of those directors are engaged in any kind of dialogue. And that can be easy to do when you have questions and answers back and forth. So take that into consideration if you are thinking that you might have more than 2 directors there. I would certainly prefer to not have more than 2, just out of abundance of caution. Just make sure that.
So one has to sit back and not talk.
Yeah, or just you're one-on-one with who you're asking the question of. It can't be sidebar discussion of your directors on your board about what's being talked about. That's it under item number 9. Happy to answer any general questions. Otherwise, we got item 10.
Okay.
Right. 10 looks familiar, should look familiar to y'all. We had it on all the budget agendas last month. It's the same change to the investment policy that we presented at each of the 10 MUD meetings last month. A copy of the red line is in the packet. Using a motion to adopt the order evidencing your annual review of the investment policy, as well as to adopt the amended policy 1010.
Oh, move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Receive the general manager's report. Mr. Stinson. Good evening.
I just wanted to report that I did visit with a group of realtors this morning with the RE/MAX office up on Woodlands Parkway. I had received a request following the newspaper article about U of H and the satellite subsidence data, and then TV, a news story on that as well. So I visited with them for about an hour this morning. And I think what I emphasize to this group for the Woodlands is we have taken measures since 2016 to mitigate subsidence in the Woodlands. In fact, the measurements show that subsidence has been very much mitigated since we introduced surface water. And I think that the articles in the paper and maybe what was reported was a little bit unfair to the Woodlands. We're not a hot spot. We certainly have had sinking in Montgomery County in the Woodlands over the last 20 plus years, but since surface water was introduced, it's been mitigated substantially. And in my opinion, the real story is some of the areas that are not on surface water are likely to experience subsidence in the future. And so anyway, I think the information was well received. And on that same note, I've been asked to speak to the Grogan's Point Resident Association in December. They also had some current concerns once they saw the newspaper article and the news story on TV. So I'll be visiting with them along with the Same Center River Authority in December 8th. Thank you. Also, I wanted to report that we had staff attend the Sterling Ridge Village Association barbecue cook-off annual get-together in Sterling Ridge, and also at the Cochran's Crossing Village Association, we, along with the River Authority, had a booth there with staff. So we're happy to participate in those events. And that concludes my report for today.
Jim, I wasn't here, but in trying to review last month's agenda or trustee packet, the change in leadership at TACUS, has that gotten any better? That seemed like we got thrown to the wolves there.
We're going to talk about that under the next agenda item.
Okay.
Thank
you. With the AMR. Sorry. Okay, anything else? Questions for Mr. Stinson? Okay, agenda item 12. Mike, are you going to do that or Jim?
Yeah. Well, first of all, with the last meeting, we were, Hugh, I think, requested kind of a summary of where we were with our meter installation project, and we put some information in your packet called the Woodlands AMI Upgrade Project Status Report. I got some calls regarding that information, wanting clarification on some items. So I'm going to pass around to each director, and this is stapled in a weird way. It's a press, so it's pretty effective, but that's the way our copier does it nowadays. But, there's two sheets there. One is the document that Mike prepared. The other is a memo that we presented to the trustees back in April of 2020, outlining some of the positive and projected benefits of AMI along with the expense. And what I've changed is highlighted in yellow. In the memo, we failed to put who our AMI committee was back on that memo. And then on the other document, for clarification, under the actual project completion date, we wanted to also note that our 1-year warranty on workmanship begins November of this year, and then the 20-year prorated warranty on the meters and the radio also begins this year. It was suggested that I emphasize that the contract meter reading expense, it was an annual expense that we no longer will incur. Also, that the 2 employees that we've been able to reduce in the customer service personnel has a benefit, an annual benefit of about $86,000 a year, including benefits. And that our Water Smart portal was not factored into the expense in the memo back in April of 2020. But that is an ongoing expense of about $40,000 a year. And it was that was also something we implemented independent of AMI. The Water Smart portal is a customer service, customer engagement tool that fortunately works very well with the AMI, a Neptune software. But that was implemented independent of the AMI metering. And
The two employees who left, what happened to them?
we had, the positions were vacant and we didn't fill them.
So Jim,
Question.
the breaking still about the same 13 years,
Yes.
notwithstanding that there are minor changes.
How is that calculated?
The break-even point, it's a very complex spreadsheet that for MUD, and I'd be happy to get you that. For MUD 47, it's an interesting spreadsheet. It talks about savings, the meter, well, and just basically the meter accuracy is going to give you the ability to capture more revenue in your water bill.
Was there a?
And,
Oh, sorry,
of course, you're eliminating the 400 and something $1,000 a year in the meter reading. And I'm trying to remember, there may be a few other factors.
Did you assign any value to the qualitative factors about just being able to drill deeper into the accurate,
No, that customer service benefit, call it, had no monetary value assigned to it.
But it has value.
Oh,
right.
Tremendous.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a big fan of it, right? So I just was curious, kind of maybe just trying to get into the minds of the directors who approved it and just getting into a municipality kind of economic frame of mind versus kind of a corporate frame of mind. So that was one of the drivers around it. And so you provided a lot of good information here. I'm stunned that the original project cost is equal to the actual project cost for something that went 11 months over and actually had more meters installed than
More meters
planned. And so was that just a pure turnkey deal that, and Packus ate all that cost? And
No, it wasn't Tackus, it was Amoresco.
I'm sorry, sorry about that.
No, but
Of course.
what needs to be clear,
Yeah.
the meters, the extra meters, we took out of our inventory. That we had them in inventory, so it cost the MUD districts, but it didn't change their contract price.
Okay, so this does not include the meters? This cost?
No.
How much are we talking about?
I'm confused.
So the 13
wait,
Lauren, I'm sorry.
It includes 33,979 meters, just not the extra 170 or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
You feel a
That's
little better?
Yeah, yeah. I was going.
How do you do this stuff? This is great.
You feel a
Your
little
A&R
better.
committee was good, but not that good.
Out of 30,000 meters, you're not going to get it exact.
Oh, of course, of
estimated
course.
what it would be, and then we had more. And rather than doing a contract change, we just pulled the meters out of inventory, gave them to their crews, and they installed.
Okay. And I was gonna kind of ask, I think maybe Kyle already asked it, that there's a lot of intangibles, not only on the customer side, but I imagine on your side. And was there some idea that water losses would go down, or that because you'd know where things might be leaking, because you can see it now on a granular basis, either inside your own system or at the resident level, or has that materialized at all?
Unmetered water would improve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because of the accuracy of the meters, and we have absolutely seen that. I may have mentioned at a previous meeting, I've had a couple of conversations with plumbers, and it's driving them crazy because customers are calling in to come find my leak. My meter says I have a leak, and they're really amazed at how accurate they are, and they do find leaks, but it's
So do the old meters, or did they historically under meter?
Yes.
as they get
Yes.
older, they register less accurate.
Yeah,
They're
you said-
mechanical.
Never registered more, did register less. I had my water went 0 1 month. And I said, I think my meter is not accurate, but I was getting plenty of pressure, everything else. But the meter would have been there for 40 years and the meters we had never overcompensated or charged people, only undercharged. And they say that they're not gonna happen as frequently with these new meters. But the 10-year payout, I'm not gonna see.
Nonsense hardly, you will. I just don't think that technology doesn't age, does it? It's just sensors and things like that. So I don't see any, how it's ever gonna lose
Yeah,
accuracy.
sonic meter, yeah.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, the other benefit is the rereads. We put in here that in
Yeah.
July 2019, it was reported we had 334 rereads. Anybody that's been around can remember every summer when we had high usage, it was overwhelming. People, the social media would blow up, the meters aren't accurate, they're not reading.
Yeah.
You know, call the water company to get a reread. You know, I've looked in my meter box, nobody's been there to read the meter in months. And now, well, in July of 22, we reported 68 rereads. And if you look at the gallons pumped during those two time periods, we had a lot more water pumped. And demand was higher in July of this year than July of 2019.
You know, speaking of intangibles, you mentioned people able to find their leaks faster now. We didn't talk about, I don't remember talking about the intangibles of conservation, but I mean, you stop hundreds, if not thousands of leaks over time, you know, there's a conservation benefit too, overall.
Absolutely, yeah. And the other thing that I think is helpful is if you look on social media now during the hot summer months when the demand was high, you see a different tone with most of the customers that the meters, you know, are accurate. If you have a concern, call the Woodlands Water Agency. They'll help you figure out what your leak is, but it's not that your meter is not being read, or it's not that your meter is broken. It's trust in the meter readings has gone very high.
The antenna.
You know, I can't remember, 616, well, we utilize some existing structures, water elevated tanks, rather than putting up a new tower, we installed a few new ones, but 16 overall repeaters, if you will, or
Anything else, Jim?
then
Thank
regarding,
you for pulling this together, by the way. I appreciate it. It's my request and I really appreciate it. It's well done.
thank you.
Glad to see it. Thank you.
Then regarding our ongoing negotiations with TACA to try to resolve the damages, outstanding system damages, I think I reported in September that I had a phone call with the, in October, I reported, I had a phone call with the chief financial officer who was going to report my concerns to the CEO. And I'll detail this in your mud packets, but then that was on October the 12th. I didn't hear anything, so I sent an email on October the 25th, asking, where are we with this, to the CFO. Well, I got a response from the chief operating officer that there had been, and I'm quoting, developments that affected TACA's ability to get back with me. And so we had a phone call following that. We had several phone calls. Really haven't made a lot of progress. And so I sent an email November the 8th, and I got an email from the COO that he was boarding a plane to go out of the country and to try to reconnect with me early next week.
I think I saw that one bag of them. Thank you.
Again, I'm concerned at this point about.
I think they were going through a potential ownership change. And that fell through. That's what I hear. So you might get some comments back I heard that through somebody who works there.
Okay.
Unnamed source that just said there was a lot of turmoil. But that did not happen, or it's not happening right now. So maybe that explains some of it. Probably does.
I hope so.
I think that's probably what it does. It got very close, apparently.
Brian, what's our exposure on this? Is there a statute of limitations? Is there a?
Can go to closed session if you want. Jim and I visited. Not quite ready for that discussion yet, but if y'all feel like we need to talk some more.
Maybe be more appropriate and have it, depending on what I find in the next month or less, we'll decide that.
Okay. It's okay with me. Everybody else okay with that? Let it take its course. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, Jim?
No, sir.
Okay, agenda item 13. Receive staff or ad hoc committee updates from the Audit and Finance Committee and the Public Education Committee. Trustee Ron Wilson, representing the Audit and Finance Committee.
Nothing to report. We haven't had any meetings this month.
How'd you get a spot on the agenda? Public Education Committee, Trustee Neil
Yeah,
Gainer.
well, what I would report is we have a meeting set in December with SJRA and their financial advisor and ours and our staff to start looking at our critical infrastructure renewal concept or SJRA's major.
When is that meeting?
For water.
Do you recall?
I think it was the 12th at 4:30.
I think you're right.
Thank you, Kyle.
It's on my calendar. So
What did you say, 4:30?
between there and 16:30 hours.
Trustee Gainer, please.
Okay, the public education day, the more trustee meetings. At this point, the strategic communication plan being finalized, the committee will be reviewing the latest version next week, certainly before Thanksgiving. Quarter 1, 2023, planning for significant communication outreach, print media, e-blasts, social media, and just a general aside, very successful Focus Crossing Fall Festival outreach, where Woodlands Water and SJRA participated. A lot of interest was expressed by those folks who participated. A message is going out to customers this month on winter averaging, which is the absolute key to managing your billing for sewer use all through the year. So turn off your sprinkler system. Jim has mentioned another couple of items that we did discuss during the meeting. That was the recent publicity on groundwater pumping and subsidence. Won't get into that. And the other point is that the Public Education Committee will have a role that will be developed over time to inform the public about some of these challenging issues. That's what I have.
I had just the discussion we had about the year-end letter.
Well, yeah.
Can I add that or not?
Well, I was going to leave that next trustee meeting, but since you bring it up, yeah, I think we are suggestion you made during the meeting today. The Public Education Committee will be discussing a process for year-end report and look forward what's being achieved in the months for full transparency in what's going on and how money is being spent.
Very good. Questions, Neil? Thank you, Neil. Oh, yes, David?
Yeah, personnel committee. We have, someone's looking for Jim's replacement.
Yes.
Is that being handled?
Yeah.
It is a work in progress, yes.
You report about that?
Yes, it is being set to be imminently, once we have something to really of concrete substance to report.
You say intimate, what do you mean by that?
Imminent,
Imminent,
not
what do you mean?
intimate. And I mean, soon, very soon, probably December, that's the hope.
And what would that involve? Yeah, announcement of hire, look at, or what?
Well, it wouldn't be an announcement to hire, it would be, did you say someone to?
No, I mean, what would be the next step? Is that an announcement that we've chosen someone? or an
Candidate,
announcement
a
beginning of
candidate and then discussion of the candidate.
Discussion of the candidates.
Mhm.
You think it'll happen in
Hoping in December.
December?
That's what we'd like, and then action to, fulfill the need. Okay. Let's see. We're through it. Okay. Agenda item 14. Receive information on merchant service fees and consider the option of passing a portion of the fee to the customers. Jim, Maureen, I know, Paul, you've been working with them.
We can just open the discussion. I think Paul had visited with Maureen on one or more occasions about what the MUDs cover what we call merchant service fees or transaction fees, web or electronic transaction fees. Though it's not a Woodlands Water Agency expense, but it's a MUD expense. When you add them all together, one of the major techniques or technologies is about $400,000. I remember.
More than that, almost 500.
One, how about the big one here?
Oh, the
Yeah.
438.
Yeah, one's over 400,000. So I guess it begs the question is collectively, would we like to look at options to recover some of that? I think you're seeing many other utilities are charging the customer a fee to use the electronic payment format. Marine has done some research. A number of water utilities are doing that now. I'm even seeing it in one of the restaurants I go to where they're upcharging a credit card fee if you use a credit card. So it's something to talk about. I guess, Paul, do you want to share your thoughts or ideas, or I can just tell you what mine are?
Well, what surprised me more than anything is that there's 2, 4, 6, 7 or 8 categories of
Payments.
fees, and the payments range from less than 1% all the way up to 4.25. So it's really it's a calculus that has to be discussed and options thrown out and possible ways to shift some of the cost, in my opinion, back to the ratepayer, because it's not being done equitably, in my opinion.
And, what we like to encourage is we would discourage individual MUD taking a separate or individual approach. So what I would like to recommend is the president put together an ad hoc committee, probably our audit finance committee or others. So let's look at, where we are, what others are doing, and try to collectively come back with a recommendation for this board of what a couple of options would be.
I
And
will
see if
make
there's
that
a will,
request
a
that the
desire
Audit
for
and
all of
Finance
us.
Committee could come back with a recommendation after analyzing this situation and data.
Is there, what's the cheapest is that to direct draw language, I think? Is there a fee for that?
Bank draft.
Bank draft?
ACH receiver, well, we're shifting the bank drafts handled in-house to the web, so they're eventually going to be not managed by us, so that cheap factor is gone due to, PCI. We don't want our bank account information in-house, so we phase that out, so. But yeah,
I guess the way I understand it, the cheapest is if you get your bill and you have a online payment function with your bank, you go in and you ask the bank to send us a payment. There's very little expense to us. And that's the overall least expensive for us to
And
handle.
the expenses, they may forget to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you have that.
it's not something you can set up on a monthly basis because it varies.
It's not an auto draft, right?
No, this is, well, the auto.
No, saying it's not, I mean,
It could be.
I- but the amount changes every month, so you gotta push that payment to you.
But their average billing,
We don't offer that.
but the person can do it. I mean, they could pay a flat $100 per month if they
Right.
But
wanted to.
once you
do that.
push this,
Yeah.
this, auto draft function,
We have
to the,
already.
to the website, instead of you setting it up,
Right.
what's the fee on that? Is that the cheapest fee? Is that the cheapest fee of the 6 or 7 that you mentioned?
We don't assess a fee to the customer at this.
No, I mean, I'm just saying
Oh,
cost,
our
cheapest
cost,
cost.
it's about 2%.
2%,
Yeah.
and then they go up from 2 to 4. Is there anything cheaper than 2%?
The 4.25% is retail payments, which is over the phone that we take or over the counter and the swiper.
Oh, okay, you swipe it.
That's the highest cost.
Do many people write checks anymore?
Yeah, we show about 9% we receive paper checks and they're converted to an electronic file and the file is sent to the bank and that's very inexpensive as well. No time.
But it's more labor intensive.
I was gonna say, there's this, because you gotta count staff time on that.
Bank charges, it's very.
So what percentage of the customer base is automatic withdrawal from your checking account?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell, because the website payments is about 35% of total payments. How much of the auto pay, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would be, it's a transaction. Everybody has might be a baseline cost. And, which it's built into the fee that we sell water up to a point, right? So if we determine that it's a basic model, 2%, everybody's in that 2%. And we raise water rates or not, again, to absorb that. And I'm more concerned about the higher end. I'm concerned about what everybody's doing, except the 9% still write a check. But then that costs you more to process.
Yeah.
So I mean, it seems like we're chasing, a cost in which every one of our customers is sharing in.
Are we trying to work it here?
Yeah,
Or about you having a committee on it?
Well, I'd like to see the numbers, people talking about it.
Yeah.
what will be the process? I mean, will you continue discussions with Jim and Maureen and Paul? And then come to the Finance and Audit Committee?
Well, I would like to recommend that the audit committee be instructed to work with the staff.
Okay.
To look at what we're doing now, look at what options may seem reasonable to at least that group and us, and then bring those back to the trustees to be discussed.
And I think an important factor would be how much of that $400,000 is borne by each of the MUDs. Because I think as the MUDs look at that individually, if it comes to that point, some MUDs may want to, I know you want to do it more homogeneous and everyone have the same way, but I think when you come down to that decision, some MUDs maybe have very little cost to that, and some MUDs may have a lot of cost to that. In which case you do want to pass it back on to those respective users.
You're allocating that cost by hookup.
By the payment dollar amount.
Oh, you actually take it back by
Oh,
dollar
yeah.
amount per customer.
Well, yeah. For daily batch collected.
So the Audit Committee will work on this and then come back. You think this might occur in December for presentation in January? Or would it be, is there more urgency?
No, there's no, in my opinion, there's no more, it's already factored into the MUD budgets. This is something that I think deserves attention and deserves to be looked at, but I don't know that we'll come back with a recommendation in December.
No, just to.
Would you put it on the MUD agendas, please? For November?
Mhm.
And we can talk
What
about
it
it.
is,
the
an action
MUDs.
item or a discussion? item?
Yeah, for discussion, because some people think that's the cost of doing business.
Happy to put it on there.
everyone were using the system and everyone paid the same rate, I would agree with you.
Mhm.
Yes.
But when only a third of the people are using the system and the costs range from less than 1% to 4.25%, that's not equitable. So there's, the costs are not being shared proportionately.
Well, that's certainly an argument and then as substance. Yes.
To be taken up in Finance and Audit Committee.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, closed session this month? That sounds for now. Okay, well then we're gonna move on from that one. And so we're going to discuss any matters for placement on future agendas. Anybody have anything that they'd like to discuss that has not already been addressed or mentioned? Hearing none. Will we close this meeting? And we're adjourned.